All right, you guys ready?
Yeah,
Ready.
I'm pumped.
I'm starting the music.
All right.
Let's do it, dude. It's the 51st episode, so 51. Can't believe it. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Suehiko Ono. I love that name, first of all. He's the CEO of EOS Farms, and he's got a crazy story. I met him literally in person 2 days ago. Nice to have you here, bro.
My father was a potter. My name Suehiko means son of pottery. Two aspects that became very important in my life. One was the organic farming, the other was the Zen and the meditation. But the organic agriculture really struck me as central to so many different aspects of life. Right?
And you're saying basically getting organic local farms to be able to make weed plants as well,
Yep.
grow weed plants
Yep.
to help sustain their
Farm. Exactly. That was the idea.
All right. We are back. I'm with a new friend of mine, guys, Suehiko Ono. And I love that name, first of all. He's the CEO of EOS Farms, and he's got a crazy story. I met him literally in person 2 days ago in Pittsfield, Mass. How the hell are you, as my friend Matt would say.
I'm good. Thanks.
Nice to have you here, bro.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
And we've been talking a little bit before off camera, and I've been getting to know you just a little bit, but I haven't been able to like find out where you're born, where you're from, and the show. Oh, first of all, it's the 51st episode, so 51. Can't believe it. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Very, very awesome. But tell me, Suehiko, where were you born, dude? Because
I was born in Pittsfield.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, my
So this is full circle. Jeez.
full circle, and
Wow.
definitely not intended. It's kind of a zigzaggy road to get there, but yeah, my parents lived in Housatonic in Berkshire County in Massachusetts, and my father was a potter. My name Suehiko means the son of pottery.
Wow.
And my father was a classically trained Japanese potter, the 9-year apprenticeship, the whole shebang. He could go out into the wilderness with a loincloth and come back with a fired pot, build a kiln, the whole thing.
Was he born and raised in Japan?
He was born and raised in Japan.
And your mother as well?
No, my mother's from Mount Vernon. She's a
New York.
Mount Vernon, New York, Ashkenazi Jew.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm actually 51% Ashkenazi Jew and 49%
Cool,
Japanese.
dude.
Yeah, just did the 23andMe.
How did
so.
they meet?
My mother was going out
Studying
to
abroad
Japan.
or something?
Yeah, studying
Yeah.
abroad. Yep. She was, I think the name of a hippie, just hardcore hippie.
Yeah. It's that
And,
time.
Yeah. And went out to Japan for a 1-year apprenticeship, which was part of this 9-year apprenticeship
For what?
for pottery.
Your mother.
Yeah. So she went out there,
Are
and my
you
father
kidding
was
me?
in his last year of the apprenticeship, and that's how they met.
Wow.
And they were not supposed to be dating, and they got kicked out actually in the very end of his apprenticeship.
Really?
Very much, yeah.
Why is that? Like, it's just like the culture?
Yeah. I have somewhat surface level, sporadic, spotty understanding of Japanese history and culture from various angles, and a lot of it I don't really understand. But so they were there. They got kicked out, made their way back to the United States, and my father started trying to be a professional potter in the United States. End of the 70s. That was pretty difficult. It really wasn't catching on, and my father was a very proud, kind of arrogant person, and after a 9-year apprenticeship in Japan, you can be considered a national treasure. It's a very, very esteemed profession, and here, people were just looking for a cheap pot.
Yeah.
So they kind of bounced around and wound up in Housatonic for a little while. So I was born in Pittsfield at the Berkshire Medical Center.
Cool.
About 9 months after that, they went back to Japan, bounced back and forth, came back to New England, Connecticut. My father went back to Japan permanently when I was 4. So I grew up in New York with my mother. My mother remarried my stepfather also a Brooklyn-born Ashkenazi Jew, World War II veteran, just total badass.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a really interesting guy. He was about 30 years the senior of my mother, and it was always a source of tension and difficulty and embarrassment for me.
Yeah.
Growing up in Bedford, New York, very, it's a sort of higher upper middle class mixture, Westchester County, New York.
Right.
So I always felt very out of place in a lot
They're
of
like
ways.
generational families are there.
Yeah,
Like the teachers know each generation of kids that are coming through. This same family type stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing with Fairfield. I totally understand that. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, my stepfather was a marathon bicyclist. He actually passed away. He had a heart attack when I was 15. He was 61 years old. He was training for the Paris-Brest-Paris an 880-mile bicycle race. He was going to be doing it for the third time when he passed away. Very unexpectedly,
Yeah.
So
Sorry for that.
Yeah. So I grew up in New York. Played baseball every chance I got.
Favorite team growing up?
Yankees.
Nice.
Yeah.
Matthew.
I see Donnie Baseball up on
gosh.
the wall there. Jeter.
There's a guy that, remember I told you we have a show called Sports Port. Is our sports show?
Yeah.
His name's Barnes. All right. There's no one that loves baseball or sports more than this guy. So Yankees, I already know when Barnes and Matt watch this, you're already a fan of theirs. You know what I mean? They're going to love you.
Yeah, I always had an interesting relationship with sports growing up. I mean, all my friends growing up, my friends that I still have from growing up, they were all hardcore. We were all into sports and all athletes, and they were a lot more into the spectator aspect of it. And it never. I mean, I loved baseball and I really appreciated it, and I loved Don Mattingly, just his swing, his work ethic, everything about it. I really loved Don Mattingly, and I loved the Yankees to a certain degree, but I was not a hardcore fan, and I never was. And I
totally get it.
But I mean, I played baseball every waking moment. Growing up. You had mentioned you had a difficult experience in high school. Basketball. I had a very similar
experience.
Difficult.
But when you said the stepfather thing, and then you're him passing, like also that that I can relate. Like 2019, I had he wasn't my father, but Mr. Greenwood, totally unexpected. Runs I forgot the distance, like either 3 to 5 miles every day. Rains, shine, sleet, or snow. Goes into cardiac arrest one night, and then 4 days later you're pulling the plug. It's like shows you what life is real, in those moments. So I totally understand that, especially when it's someone that's like, not blood, but loves you like blood, it's crazy. But I totally, it's crazy. It's what we have a lot in common, honestly. Yeah. As I'm hearing your story, and I continue to hear it. Sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, I mean, how much detail? Where should we go from there?
Dude, we have. The time is yours. You know what I mean? We could go. The shows go as long as we talk. Like, what do you want to tell? You know what I mean? So, like, what happened after, let's say, 15 years old when you got into high school, out of high school age, going to college. What were you doing? Where'd you go to college?
So, I played a lot of baseball, and was always I was a decent student. I was very, very polar in my as a student. I was the type of student where the teachers either loved me or hated me, and there was very little in between. I was in a lot of honors and AP classes, and kind of refused to do homework, which always kind of pissed teachers off.
Right.
And really thought that baseball, I was going to be able to ride baseball to get into school. And so my junior year in high school, I still, I mean, I can think back to it and even kind of get like even a little emotional arousal from it. But my junior year in high school, I was about 2/3 through the season. I was batting .580, which was second in the county.
It's ridiculous.
And I was actually batting .620, but my coach was shaving hits off of me. It's kind of a long story, and I'll skip a lot of it. It's sort of tedious at this point. But long story short, I got into it with my coach during one of the big games of the season, and tore my jersey off, threw it, and the whole thing, and wound up getting kicked off the team and getting suspended from school. So following year, and this was a crucial year for baseball, the way the season works in junior year.
Your junior year is it. Like, that's when college is just looking at
you. Exactly. So I got kicked off, and then my senior year, I kind of hoped that I could, kind of make up for it and play.
Yeah. Get a couple offers.
Yeah, exactly. And, had these long conversations, and it was drawn out with the superintendent of schools, the athletic director, the coach, and, the student counselor, and everyone assured me, it's all water under the bridge, and, we'll give you the fair shot. And so I tried out in my senior year, and the coach had sort of broken up the entire tryouts from infield tryouts and outfield tryouts. Yep. And I was literally the only player who showed up early to the infield and stayed late for the outfield. And, I was basically, coach, whatever you want me to play, I'll play.
Yeah.
Kept my mouth shut because I knew I was in scrutiny. And so tryouts happen, they end, and the coach decides that he's going to make 2 JV teams because he doesn't want to cut a single player, right? And so out of this,
I hate that, I hate that whole mindset.
So of that, and I forget how many kids tried out, but I was the only player in the entire system that he cut my senior year. Yeah, and I started for him as a sophomore.
Fighting you.
Oh yeah, I started for him as a sophomore, right?
So it's like the talent, obviously, the skill, obviously.
Yeah, so it kind of got drawn out and battled back and forth, and that extended to the point where I wound up, kind of fighting it and trying to get on the team and get some clarity around what was happening, and eventually just kind of escalated to the point where I went to the principal because the coach literally changed the story halfway through. First he said, I wasn't good. He said my bat speed wasn't good enough. That was kind of the excuse that he gave. Then he changed the story, and he said I was belittling other players and boasting about my ability, and that's why he cut me. So we went to the superintendent or to the principal and said, hey, if you can get one student to anonymously verify that this is true, then we'll walk away. And the principal said, nope, not necessary. If the coach says it's good enough, you're done. So next day I took one of those plastic little water bottles and bounced it off the back of the principal and got kicked out of high school. So I got expelled, but I was in all AP classes, so I was able to get.
This is so funny.
So I got my diploma.
Yeah.
Was suspended for the remainder of school. Wound up going to SUNY Albany. I didn't get into any schools that I wanted to, so I went to SUNY Albany. Skipped the first semester, but I had the AP credits, so I had the college credits. So I actually graduated from college, right on time. With extra credits and whatnot. And my sophomore year in college, I walked on to the SUNY Albany team.
Oh, cool.
Well, sort of.
Oh.
So 100 players tried out, and the way the coach set it up was, it was basically first day. It was just kind of infield, outfield, just showcase basic skill sets, sprinting, whatever. And then he cut about half, I think, after the first 2 days, and then split it up into 2 teams and just had everybody scrimmage for the rest of the week. Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah,
that's a
great
great tryout.
It was awesome. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
I hate those mundane types of tryouts where it's like you said, the infield, outfield, and you're like, all right.
Yeah,
what does that show you?
Yeah. So after 100 kids tried out, he wound up keeping 2 players, myself and a pitcher. And I thought I was going to start in the middle infield. And so the coach pulls me aside, after the tryouts, and he says, hey, what position what number do you want, blah, blah, blah. And where'd you play high school? And I was like, oh, shit, right? So I went to Fox Lane, but I didn't play my senior year. I had to work is what I said. So coach, I guess, I don't really know what happened behind the scenes. I heard rumors, but that afternoon I got a message on my phone that, sorry, we're going to have to let you go, and, not going to be able to keep you. So that summer, I went to go live at spent a month at Green Gulch Zen Monastic Community.
Green Gulch Zen Master Community.
Yeah, it's Green Gulch Farm. It's in
Okay.
Sausalito, California.
Okay.
It's part of the the late '60s.
And I'm not familiar with California at all. Is it north, south?
So it's right over the Golden Gate Bridge, right outside of San Francisco.
Okay.
The California Coast Ranges, I believe the name of the mountain range, Coyote Ridge, Muir Beach, Muir Woods, that's all around there.
Cool.
Stinson Beach. You could actually see San Francisco from sort of the ridges
of the property.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Beautiful, idyllic setting, and went there for a month. The summer of my sophomore year, I would have played baseball that summer, but that ended.
Yeah.
So I went to go live there and fell in love with it, and just committed at that. I mean, at that point, I knew, so the day after I graduated from college,
Yeah.
I was out there living.
And what is this place? For
It's
people that don't know.
So
like me.
Green Gulch Green Gulch Farm, and it's a Zen monastic commune.
Okay.
It's a 8-acre production farm, all organic, CCOF, organic certified farm, and it was founded. Green Gulch was started, I believe, in the late '70s, and the San Francisco Zen Center's really interesting history. A guy named Shinryu Shogaku Suzuki, who was a Japanese Zen master, Zen monk, came to San Francisco in the late '60s and started a Zen meditation community, just a sitting group in San Francisco, and that sort of grew to a point where one of his proteges, a guy named not Richard, is it Richard Baker? But Baker. No, not Richard Baker. I'm forgetting his first name.
It's okay.
My mind.
It'll come. You can keep. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be like, ah.
Yeah. But anyway, this young kid almost at the time, comes on and becomes one of his proteges. But he was also very savvy in terms of real estate. So really business-minded, savvy real estate type of person, but sort of the Zen protege. And so they acquired.
I was gonna say, what kind of meditation does the Zen practice do? Like, how there's like transcendental and there's different types. I'm just like curious because I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to know because I'm into meditating.
Yeah. So Zen is primarily breath focus.
Got it.
Right. Very, very, mindfulness training focused on breath and posture. Very, very posture, breath oriented.
Got it.
Zen. So Bodhidharma, right? The Indian monk, I guess, crossed the river on a bamboo shoot, right? Balancing on a bamboo shoot magically, and brought Buddhism to China. And China mixed with Taoism and Confucianism to come up to create Chan, which then went from China to Japan and became Zen. Zen in Japan, it mixed with a lot of the Shinto sort of aesthetic, so it became sort of its own thing in that way. And the founder of our tradition, a guy named Dogen, founded Soto Zen, and that lineage kind of continued from in Japan from I guess 1100s, and now you have various Zen monastic communities throughout Japan.
Wow.
And so this monk Shinryu Shogaku Suzuki in the late '60s came to San Francisco and started a sitting group, a meditation group focusing on zazen.
Posture and breath.
Yeah, zazen is
Zazen.
Zazen is the name of the meditation practice.
Zazen,
again,
cool.
Yeah, and it's really again focused on your breath and your posture. In fact, one of the very famous writings by Dogen is literally just spelling out how you sit, right? You put your left hand inside your right hand inside your left hand, and your knees on the floor, and rock back and forth, and literally that's what the entire it's about, that focusing on a very mundane aspect of reality, which is your breath and your posture.
Which is something people don't do at all.
Correct.
on a day-to-day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, think
Yeah.
about all the people that like use things to like aid their seating
Right.
at an office or something, for
Right.
example, you know?
Yep.
And then breathing.
Yeah.
People have high anxiety, for example, and they don't even realize you just have to just breathe sometimes.
Yep.
And get the oxygen. If you want to go science-based,
Yep.
get the oxygen there.
Yeah.
If you want to go spiritual, you know, some cool things can happen.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and a big part of it is the fact that, you know, so much of what we fear, and what we're, you know, anxiety is fear about the future, and regret is fear and negative valence, emotion, and experience about the past. None of these things actually exist in the present moment, right? These are things that are created in the mind, and quite, you know, and every idea that you have in the mind is a model of reality. It's not actual reality. And so the things that you fear about the future will never actually happen, and the things that you regret or don't like about the past didn't actually happen the way that you remember them.
Right.
That's the nature of the mind.
Exactly.
Right?
It plays on you over time. I know.
Exactly.
It's so cool. But it's the hardest thing to, because, you know, I've been practicing, for example, for me, you know, it's the breathing obviously helps. Like focusing on your breath. She knows every morning when we go work, you know, our team goes and works out or whatever, we meditate, guided meditations and stuff. Sunrise we're done with the guided meditation, and you know, it's not falling asleep. You know, that's the key part, right? Your body's asleep, but the mind's awake.
Yep.
It's crazy, like where you could get to, and actually be here, and be here, and not have your mind be thinking about like, I don't know, food or something. You know what I mean? While we're having a dope conversation.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah, totally.
But continue.
No. I mean, this is all of it. And, you know, so I was there for 2 years. It was an organic farm.
And I'm sure that's how you started understanding the organic farming world too.
Yeah. So there were two aspects that became very important in my life. One was the organic farming. The other was the Zen and the you know, the mindfulness training and the meditation. But the organic agriculture really struck me as central to so many different aspects of life. Right. I mean, so much of what we consume comes from a farm.
It's crazy.
In fact, you know, everything we eat.
Yeah. So,
which is fairly important.
Yeah.
Right. But then all the aspects that come along with agriculture and the so-called externalities, right? The external costs, environmental pollution, and now, of course, human health.
Oh, dude,
right?
with all the pesticides and the what's it called? In the planes, and they're dropping chemicals. What's it called? Chemtrails. And all that stuff.
Yeah. But it gets even, I think, deeper and worse, more fundamental, and specifically now. You know, if you look at U.S. federal subsidy to agriculture, we directly, U.S. tax dollars goes in the order of billions, tens of billions of dollars direct subsidy to corn, soybean, and wheat, but primarily corn. And we grow the corn for ethanol, right, for fuel, for feed for animals, and for sugar. Sugar's a big one. High fructose corn syrup.
Yep. And that's horrible for your body.
Well, now, of course, you know, everyone's obese.
Yeah.
Right? And has cancer and heart disease.
Everybody.
Right. And more we're seeing, you know, that one of the major factors associated with
is the
heart disease, you know, and sugar.
Is corn. Yeah, it's sugar. Yeah. Sugar, but.
Yeah. And high fructose corn sugar is like sugar on steroids.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting you to your heart attack quicker, basically. Yeah.
And we subsidize that directly with billions of dollars.
Wow.
Put it into our food system. In fact, if you look at a label, basically any ingredient that you don't understand is a derivative of corn. And we subsidize it so that these large corporations, Cargill, you know, and you know, these giant corporations can buy corn for less than the cost of production because we subsidize it. All the value-added stuff, right? All the sugar, all those derivatives, and put it into our food system. And then everyone is obese, has heart disease and cancer. Now, I'm not saying it's the only cause of it, but it's a big part.
Yeah.
So all of these topics became very, very interesting to me. And I became very interested in organic local farms. And there's a lot of controversy over whether that's the right solution. And, you know, without getting too much into it, I sort of came to
What
the
is
conclusion.
the controversy, though? Why would there be controversy for organic local farms
Well, one of the arguments is that you can't possibly grow enough food
fast enough. Yeah.
fast enough. Like the production capacity is not enough in small local farms to supply the food for all of the world's population.
Right. I know that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But like, what about like, you know, because these mass corporations, for example, that are pumping out, that have farms, because you know obviously more than me, but I heard that during this like last couple of years with COVID and stuff, like farmers have been getting like nullified or whatever to like destroy their crops. Some of them obviously, and like they're being forced essentially to sell or comply. Like do it their way, or you're gonna have to sell.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of that happens, right? I mean, so if there's a lot of times, you know, our tax dollars go to farmers so that they don't grow, to keep supply at, you know, at the right levels, right? So that the prices don't drop too much.
So just backwards sometimes.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in our agriculture, you know, so the flip side of it is, I think all these things, many of these things start from the right place, and you know, the farming policy, ag policy in the United States has now led to very efficient and very low cost food, but low cost because of the externalities. In other words, the agricultural
carbon footprint and
Exactly.
stuff and all that jazz.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Environmental runoff, the
Yeah.
nitrification of water. Right. These are important things.
Yeah.
And these are large scale issues.
Right.
That we
They're not
face.
doing it on these are mass production
Right.
companies,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Even though they're farms, they're companies.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
you know, giant source of carbon in the atmosphere comes from our agricultural production. A giant source of nitrification of water, which is, you know, that's a big issue, also comes from agriculture. Then you put the sugar into the system, and it's a huge part of our health
Yep.
issues.
So it's like all of it, air and diet
Exactly.
and water.
Environmental issues and human health. They all and issues of justice, right? You know, equity, things that, you know, the concept of food security is this question of, you know, who has access to healthy, nutritious, stable food supplies. And it's not an easy answer, right? But, you know, my contention is if those billions of dollars of subsidy to corn for sugar to poison us were just sent to small farms, that would be one possible solution.
Yeah, and even helping smaller farms grow
Yeah.
too and be bigger to supply more.
Right. But big ag is one of the big, you know, other than, you know, big pharma, big ag is one of the biggest.
Big pharma.
Yeah. I mean, and they're connected. So
Yeah, of course. Yep.
yeah, the federal government knows better than to, you know, start scratching that.
I know.
That itch.
I
So,
know.
so that's not where it's going to happen.
I know.
Right. But, you know,
It's
so
gonna be like a revolution, honestly. That's like the only way anything's gonna change.
well, you know, I think, yeah, I mean, it's
Like, because there's so much. Like, we're talking about agriculture. Like, we're talking about, this is like you just said, it's a large thing.
Yeah.
But like, and you just said there's big farmer over here, and there's a bunch of other stuff, and it's just like that's the only way. People just have to like educate themselves, basically.
Yeah.
We're not educating ourselves. We stopped educating ourselves, I feel like 100 years ago. Citizens.
Yeah.
I'm talking legally too. Like, citizens don't know their legal rights and stuff. They don't know that we're not even sovereign citizens. You know what I mean? People don't know that. I won't go there, but I'm just saying, like, there just needs to be a revolution, honestly, to fix all of this craziness.
Well, you know, the biggest idea that I started thinking about while living at Green Gulch, this Zen commune, was development of city-states, right? Individual, you know, sort of exiting the existing nation-states to create sovereign city-states. Started with ideas about, you know, communes and communities, and sort of developed to the scale of, you know, cities, million people, hundreds of thousands to millions of people. And this was something that I was thinking about quite a bit. So out of Green Gulch, I went to go to UC Santa Cruz to their Center for Agroecology and Sustainable Food Systems to study agriculture there.
Big. That's a.
It's a lot of words.
Yeah, dude. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it's basically, you know, ecological horticulture study, sort of apprenticeship program in UC Santa Cruz.
Hands-on.
Yeah. Slept in a tent. It was great. It was awesome. Great program. I was a pain in the ass at that program. I was kind of studying alternative ways of education. Plus, I'm not a good sitting in class type of person.
Yeah, me either. It's tough.
I mean, I study all the time, and I always have. Not always. I would say after I got kicked out of high school, I started studying a lot.
Right.
Fell in
It's
love
your
with
own
philosophy.
way. It's your own way. It's your own time. It's your own speed.
Yeah, and I'm better at reading than listening to somebody slowly explain something. I just am not interested.
Yeah.
And I just that's not my learning style. I can read and comprehend.
Right.
So but the program was awesome. I mean, it was really hands-on, really kind of cutting edge as far as that goes. Right in UC Santa Cruz, beautiful in the middle of campus. And then I went back to New York to develop a small CSA, community-supported agriculture farm in Ossining, New York, for a nonprofit. And that led me to law school. So I went to law school.
That just made me like raise my eyebrows because that caught me like out of left field.
That's awesome. I love. This is keep it going. Just keep it going. Can't wait to get lunch after too.
So
Law school.
Yeah, so I got kicked out of high school, right? And I actually my first choice of school, I wanted to go play baseball at Columbia. But got kicked out of high school and didn't have a baseball career, so that was that. Went to SUNY Albany, et cetera. Went to go live at a Zen monastery. Went to develop a small farm for a nonprofit in New York. And at that time, it wasn't cool yet. Organic agriculture wasn't cool yet. You know, and so we had our neighbors across the street, and it wasn't the same virtue signaling. Drive your Prius and get your organic vegetables.
Yes.
It was they didn't want to farm across the street in their beautiful, Ossining little hamlet town. And so this nonprofit had this existing issue that predated me with
this town,
with this one neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And it just so happened that the farm was across the street from this one neighbor that had this history, and it sort of predated me. And so they fought the farm. It was very successful, had a lot of traction. People were loving it. It was in the third year, but the nonprofit board decided that they wanted to keep this farm at its third year without growing to a point where it would actually be profitable and sustainable.
Why?
Because of this neighbor. They just didn't want it to happen. So I wasn't interested in doing that.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be, because my idea there was to use nonprofit land as a subsidy for farms, right? To connect those two things.
Yeah.
And, to make a viable farm, that was actually profitable, et cetera. But that wasn't really, the board just didn't want to fight that fight. And so the neighbor won. And the neighbor, was an attorney. And so it really kind of...
He knew exactly what to say and everything.
Yeah, knew how to fight it, knew how to navigate through the laws and get things done.
Yeah.
So it kind of, it clicked.
Yeah.
Like if you want to navigate through the world and get things done, then go to law school, right?
See.
So I applied to one school. My criteria was that I didn't have to go to class, and I would still be guaranteed a job that would pay off my law school loans. So I went to Columbia, and that was an interesting experience, to say the least. I went through a very interesting. This was a somewhat difficult point of my life in a lot of regards. I sort of started moving away from this more spiritual aspects. I would meditate a little bit. Became very, very interested in Tai Chi and the internal Chinese martial arts at that point. Backing up, I studied martial arts much of my life. My father was a black belt judo.
Oh, cool.
Guy.
My father too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, swear in Bulgaria.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Judo.
Judo. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
cool.
jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu.
Cool. Yeah. My father was a judo guy, and I started studying in Stanford, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was 6 in judo. I did that till I was 12, and then got into sports.
Yeah.
And basically stopped until I got out of. I started picking up
like
a little bit.
Or something?
Yeah, in college after I stopped playing baseball again.
Right. It was like
started picking
another
it up
form
again.
of exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when I was at UC Santa Cruz, started studying a little bit of jiu-jitsu there with Jeremy Corbell. You know the documentary filmmaker who sort of discovered and made public. What's his name? The UFO. You're got to see his movie.
Jeremy Corbell.
Jeremy Corbell. Oh man, what the hell?
He exposed what? She'll find it.
Yeah. He made a movie that was so compelling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a good movie. Yeah, when you pull it up.
Yeah, what was it about?
Jeremy Corbell. It's a UFO.
Oh, okay.
UFO exposed.
Area 51.
Yeah, but.
And flying saucers.
Yes, and what's the name of the scientist who apparently worked? Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
Yeah,
I know Bob Lazar. Yeah, I've
seen.
I do because I'm like my TikTok is full of rabbit hole stuff.
Yeah.
So Bob Lazar comes up in there a lot. I'll definitely watch that.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It definitely,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no physicist or scientist, but it definitely had me
questioning some stuff.
Yeah, there was some eyebrow raising going on for sure.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Corbell, who's now a documentary filmmaker, was a very, very talented jiu-jitsu teacher.
Wow.
So I studied from him for a little bit.
Crazy. What? Like jiu-jitsu filmmaker.
Yeah.
Great filmmaker.
Yeah. And this was in 2001.
Cool.
And I was at UC Santa
Oh my
Cruz.
gosh, that was 9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
Right around then.
Yeah.
Probably, right?
So I was at Santa Cruz, and anyway, that's just that's an aside.
Yeah.
But anyway,
cool, though.
so I've studied martial arts my whole life, and so now fast forward, I'm in law school, and I started studying Tai Chi in 2004 with my teacher.
Explain Tai Chi to people just in case they don't know.
Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua, the so-called internal arts of Chinese civilian martial arts, civilian fighting systems. Various history, a lot of lore around it as well. And the thing about Asian history is it's very difficult to separate out legend and mythology from history.
Right. Right.
They're all sort of intertwined.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the history is trying to create a narrative in the culture that may not necessarily be accurate in a sort of legitimate historical sense.
For that practice, for
exactly.
example. Yeah.
Exactly. But Tai Chi is it's a system of coordinating breath and posture,
right,
and movement, right, and
to channel
intent.
energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Because I feel like I could be wrong. Right?
Well, to create coordinated, powerful movement.
Right.
Like
where it's like simple, but it's like, am I wrong? I'm trying to.
Well, I would actually, I would almost say it is simple in a lot of ways. The movements themselves are simple, but it's trying to create in some ways, a complex set of movements, right? Using the entire body, right? So for example, if I want to move this finger, I don't just move that finger, right? I'll move the spine, right, and the breath, and then I'll connect my breath with my eyes to move the spine so that I can move my hand. And if my spine is moving my finger, then my finger is that much more powerful. Right. And then of course there's concepts in the Chinese systems of things like qi and all this other.
Yeah, qi, exactly. Universal source energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Universal source energy. That's what I was picturing in my head. So I'm glad I connected. I feel much better right now.
Yeah. But again, I just look at it in a very simple terms of it's the coordination of your posture, your breath, and your movement.
That's dope. I like that.
Yeah, and then your intent, your mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm living in New York, but getting away from the spiritual, a lot less meditation, a lot more of the Tai Chi, but really getting into more of the sort of New York attorney.
Yeah, like
Yeah, and like just,
like the guys that are just like. Yeah. How much money can I make today, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's crazy, the energy there.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. That's what happens to everyone.
Yeah, I became like a fat, shitty person.
When did you move there?
Well, I went to law school, so I started law school.
So like 01, he said, I think.
No. Law school I started in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, 2004, graduated in 07.
I'm trying to picture the city.
Yeah.
What year it was.
Yeah, 2004 to 2007. I stopped going to class after the first 6 months. Law school's a fucking waste of time.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You can just learn it.
It's.
I feel like there's you could learn outside.
Yeah, and it's writing like an attorney and learning how to do the research, which is mostly on the job training. So after the first 6 months, you learn what you're going to learn in law school, unless you want to get into very esoteric,
specific.
Yeah,
like I just do LLCs.
Yeah, well, no, a bunch of theoretical shit that doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay.
Right, that has no real bearing on life.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that said, I spent a lot of my time thinking about alternative organizational structures because remember, I was very interested in building city-states.
Yes.
And so I went to school so that I chose my school that I didn't have to go to class, but I was guaranteed a job after I graduated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I took some very interesting classes from a lot of, good professors, but to the extent that it was possible, I just stopped going to class and really spent my time either training in Tai Chi or really trying to think about city-state building. I built an experiment in wiki governance, and I still claim I was one of the first to think about crowdfunding. Tried to create a crowdfunding platform. It was all very, very unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And I think, I argue maybe a little bit ahead of its time. And I never took the time to become a coder.
Yeah.
To do that aspect of it, which, maybe in retrospect I should have. But anyway, I spent a lot of my time doing those things. And then, of course, partying and doing the New York scene.
Yeah.
Graduated in 2007 and then went to go work at, your quintessential law firm, Winston and Strawn, which was torture.
It reminds me of Better Call Saul. Honestly, I'm watching it right now. It's like, it's just so funny.
Oh, it's torture.
JMM. James
torture.
McGill.
Yeah, it was torture.
Yeah. I just I don't understand if those people are real humans.
They're real.
You know what I mean? Just like I can't believe that there's people that are just and the things people talk about sometimes. I'm like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's like a video game with certain people.
Yeah.
I just saw a fact: 38% of people, or 28%. It's even worse. Apparently, 28% of people have an internal dialogue.
Oh yeah.
And then
I'd say it's got to be more than that.
No, only 28% apparently have internal dialogue, they're saying. And everybody else just doesn't have thoughts in their head.
No thoughts?
No thoughts. Video game type of just animated answers basically, but they just have the game really down packed.
Interesting.
I know. But that one that one bugged me out. I'm like, of course. Of course.
Right.
We're talking to robots out here. Renee.
Not me.
No, I'm just joking.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Did
you know that?
I know.
Well, back to the Zen. I mean, I think part of the problem is people have too many.
Exactly.
Get caught up and identify with the thoughts, but it's.
Well,
I know.
What I'm always told by my parents is that people make life very much more than it is. It really is pretty simple, but all these things that are added into our lives,
societal pressures, materialistic things,
everything. I mean, there's so many things you could do, right? It really is just simple, and it comes down to that. And if you're keeping that, your brain doesn't go too crazy.
Right. It's hard to do though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the great art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So law school, you hate the law firm. Now.
Yeah. So I graduated from law school in 2007.
Yeah.
Right. Went right into the financial industry.
Yep.
And was a tax attorney.
Yep.
Very interesting area of the law, and what I sort of worked for a small group within this larger law firm, and their clients were primarily investment banks and hedge funds and high net worth individuals. And so most of what I worked on was kind of analyzing the tax implications of complicated transactions, like credit default swaps and all these derivatives that were,
right,
upending the economy. International trade transactions and dealing with the treaty and consequences and stuff like that, and looking at who owned what and who was responsible for what tax consequences. So it was interesting.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And you learn that. It's good to know that, though.
Yeah.
It's so good to know taxes and the law. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm learning. I'm teaching myself right now everything right now.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah. But my timing was terrible. So graduated in 2007, and then the economy collapsed in 2008.
That's right, 2008.
Right. Yeah.
That's too young.
Yep.
That's
so,
crazy.
I was married as my first wife.
Oh, wow.
I met her at Green Gulch. And we had a 9-year relationship, and this was sort of the end of it. And New York I mean, there's a lot I can say about that, but let's just say that I turned into a real douchebag. It's the only way to put it.
Yeah.
And, and so did she. I mean, it was not, it was definitely, it takes two to tango, so to speak. But in a lot of ways, I took advantage of her, and, I'll leave a lot of the gory details out, but it ended very poorly.
Right.
And 08 happened. So now I get laid off, right? I have $120,000 in law school debt. My wife leaves me. She went to Spain to find herself and, with some new dude. And so after I got laid off, I had met, so back up, my first year of law school on an airplane for spring break on our way to Hawaii, I met a guy named Hunter B. Armstrong. And fascinating guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say he sounds like a myth, like a character,
poet.
like a character from back in the day. Like
he is definitely
an adventure series.
He is definitely an adventure series character.
Yes.
Yeah.
His name says it all.
Yeah.
Like, I am Hunter.
Yeah, he goes by Chip. Chip is
what they call me.
Yeah.
I've traveled the 7 seas and even past the Arctic Oceans.
Yep. That's pretty much.
That's sick.
Yeah. So I met him on an airplane. It's funny because I was studying Tai Chi at the time, and I was really into it, and here I'm sitting next to him on an airplane. I'm kind of telling him all this stuff I know about martial arts, and it turns out that he's really one of the world's foremost authorities on combative martial arts, and also holds license in a very traditional samurai tradition. So I met him my first year of law school and started training with him, and then I got kicked out of I got kicked out of the financial industry, essentially. Economy collapsed.
Yeah.
And I got laid off. It was one of the first wave of attorneys during that sort of panic period. I just got out of law school, and so I went to go, and wife left me, and life fell apart.
Yeah, at the bottom.
Oh yeah, it was. So I went out to Sedona, Arizona, where Chip lives, to study with him. Thinking I'd be there for 3 months, and didn't really know what I was going to do. I actually wanted to go into law enforcement. That was sort of the direction I wanted to take at the time. 3 months there turned into a year. I was sleeping on a cot in the dojo, and then I started selling timeshare to support my habit, basically. Became very, very involved in the martial arts training. Became the focus of my life, really. So that was 2008, 2009, and I lived there and focused on that training and selling timeshare to support the habit, basically, and until 2018.
Okay.
When I
so 3 months turned to 9 years.
10 years.
10 years, basically.
Yep.
Okay. So then we talked about it a little bit on the farm,
right?
But
so you want to hear about Sedona?
Yeah, I want to know, I want to hear about this journey in that a little bit, and why aren't you there anymore? Yeah. I know you said 10-year, and then you were gonna basically take your master's,
Well, okay, so it's hard to say where it was.
Where it would have, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But
you had the possibilities, what you said, to eventually maybe go there.
Yeah, I mean, so. See, this is now going to be all indelibly in digital storage here, so I want to be very careful how I frame all this.
Right.
So for 10 years, we trained very, very seriously. It's a traditional. It's called Shinkage Ryu, and the tradition comes from Nagoya, in Japan, and it's the Yagyu Shinkage.
What's that?
So Yagyu is a family name.
Okay.
So 1592, guy goes, by the name Kamizumi. The person who founded this tradition, kind of started this back then at the end of, at a point in Japanese history where, back up 600, 1,200 years, Japanese history is unique in a lot of ways, and not the least of which is for a good portion of that time, the Japanese warrior class were the highest class in society. It was an actual warrior society for many years. Samurais.
It's so sick.
Yeah.
Dual katana swords any day of the week.
Are
like my choice of weapon if I was like in a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
hand me those.
Yeah, we're prepared for the apocalypse.
Yeah,
sure.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So
so sick.
Yeah. Now that this is all on camera, I got to be careful about this because there's
and
a lot
we
of
can edit
respect.
stuff. Like we'll send you.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a copy of the video, so
Yeah.
you can be like, hey, I don't want that in there or whatever.
Right. So from Kamizumi, I believe it was 13 generations handed down to a guy in Japan, and he then passed this tradition on to Chip. Chip is the first.
And what's Chip's story? Like a little pre.
Chip.
Like,
He's.
what is he, Marine?
I mean, you just Google Hunter B. Armstrong.
Hunter B. Armstrong.
Yeah,
right?
Hunter B. Armstrong.
Yeah.
But
we'll look it up later.
yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a Scottish American. Grew up in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Started studying karate. Karate. In when he was 13 years old. He's now. Oh, he's got to be almost 70. But started studying, karate in when he was 13, all through high school. Very much sort of a loner, outcast type of person. Very elitist in a lot of ways, but understandably so. He's a very high performing, he's the most disciplined, hardest person I've ever met. At least spent that much time with. So he started studying martial arts. Then he went to, I think it was from there, he went to University of Hawaii to study, I think, Asian studies and martial arts. And he found a guy named Don Draeger. Don Draeger's another guy to Google.
Look up,
Yeah. And Don Draeger was a Marine, Pacific War era Marine. I think he retired. I think he got out of the Marine Corps as a major or a captain. Anyway, he then was in Japan and was able to find himself in very closed circles. He started out as a judo guy, Don Draeger, and then developed into the koryu. Koryu is the old style, the traditional, the bushi, right? The warrior systems, right? And Don Draeger was the sort of revived and was the world's foremost authority on a school of research called hoplology, from the Greek hoplos, or warrior. It's the anthropological study of human combative behavior. And so he became first and foremost, a Marine and judo guy, and then found these traditional warrior weapon systems, the koryu. Wrote a series of very influential books about these distinctions between the old style, the bujutsu and the budo, and the modern martial arts, and really created a really interesting framework to understand human fighting systems, carrying on the tradition of hoplology. And so he became Chip mentor.
Okay.
And the two of them, all these History Channel movies,
Yeah.
shows that come out on martial arts. They travel around the world,
Yeah.
and look at fighting systems.
Yeah.
Well, they legitimately did that during the 70s for years, traveling all throughout Asia, Southeast Asia, studying fighting systems from the perspective of also being experts or masters at that time of specific fighting systems.
Right, that they knew, that they were a part of.
Right. A specific type of perspective that they use to understand fighting systems.
Right.
And this was something that was very important to Don Draeger, was that anyone who was studying fighting systems has to be able to see it from the inside and understand fighting systems from the actual usage standpoint.
Right.
As opposed to just external, objective sort of, looking at the artifacts and looking at the movements, understanding it from sort of subjective, internal standpoint of what is it, how does a fighting system actually work?
Right.
So they've traveled around, studied, and and then Chip eventually, and one of the things Don Draeger did too was he wanted to make sure that each one of his proteges sort of carried on one of the traditions. Mm-hmm. And so he introduced Chip to a number of different, of these koryu. Mm-hmm. And then Chip started studying with in the Shunpukan dojo in Nagoya in Japan. So he studied during the 80s.
Got it. And brought it out to here though.
And then he's moved his family out to Sedona, Arizona.
And it's still, that practice is still there in Sedona.
Well, yeah. I mean, and by that practice, it's a Higashi Shunpukan, which is the Eastern Shunpukan dojo.
Got it.
And Chip is the head of that.
Got it.
So he's got this place called Spartan Training Center in Sedona. Mm-hmm. That's where I lived for the first year in Sedona, and then just was there. We trained 5 to 20 hours a week religiously for the 10 years that I was there.
Wow.
And he was just made of rock. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, he's most disciplined. And I always talk about this experience. He went through cancer, mm-hmm. Stage 3 cancer, and so we would train early in the morning. It was frankly for my benefit because I had to get to work, and so mm-hmm. we would train. We'd start at 5:30, and rain or shine, I was always outdoors. And it gets down to 12 degrees in Sedona in the winter. We were out there in our pajamas, freezing, mm-hmm. training. And he was there. He never was not there. Mm-hmm. It was like clockwork. Until one day he wasn't. It turned out, he had battling cancer. And I'd never seen such unflinching courage. Mm-hmm. I mean, he didn't skip a beat. Mm-hmm. If he was standing, and this was going through, lost 30 pounds, going through chemo, nausea,
the whole side effects,
the whole
package.
Yeah. And he was there. He was training.
Yeah.
If he could stand, he was training.
Wow.
Yeah. And he got better actually during that time. And he was in his late 60s by
mm-hmm.
then. So we were out there and training and I was becoming very senior in the system, and in September of 2017.
Okay, I was just going to ask the date. Literally, it's crazy.
September 2017, we went out to Nagoya and visited the Shunpukan dojo, and I mean, it was interesting. It was some of the signs were there as though, well, I was very senior mm-hmm. in the tradition, and so back up. I've always been interested in finding creative ways to help make small farms financially viable.
Right.
So that's sort of always in the background.
Yeah. It was always lingering in your mind.
Yeah, or small organic farms for food security,
mm-hmm.
environmental degradation, and human health, right?
Mm-hmm.
But small farms, it's very, very difficult to have a small farm be financially viable.
Profitable.
Yeah,
right.
It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, I bet.
Generally speaking, you have to just focus on a niche crop for the small market.
Right.
A lot of
good area almost to distribute it to that market, that town or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sell at a premium, to a specific demographic.
Mm-hmm.
There's other shining examples of success stories. Polyface Farm, Joel Saladin, down south. I mean, there's a lot of great stories, but it's difficult.
Yeah, it's far and few between.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an interest of mine, and it had been in the background. And so I was always looking for an opportunity to connect cannabis, mm-hmm. the marijuana industry to small farms.
Right.
It's a huge cash crop.
Yeah.
State imposed monopoly, very high value crop, and so the idea was to connect it with farms. It's very difficult to do for many reasons. A lot of states don't allow outdoor farming, for example. Mm-hmm. You have to be in a warehouse. And so, every time a new law would come out, I would study them, look at them, look for the opportunity. Massachusetts draft regs came out.
What year? 2017? 18?
Yeah, 2017. The draft regs came out. The finalized draft regs.
I remember when Connecticut, people were like, "Oh,
yeah,
Massachusetts might about to have weed recreationally."
Yep.
I was like, "Whoa,
yeah,
the world's changing."
Yeah, man. Fast.
And like to now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we'll talk about the farm, but like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I was looking at these opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts came up, one of the most densely populated, third most densely populated state in the union.
Mm-hmm.
First commercial recreational in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm. Which is big.
Huge.
The Northeast.
Huge. Yep.
Huge.
And 7,700 small farms, or 7,700 farms, and 80% of those are small farms, meaning under 250,000 gross revenues.
In Mass.
In Mass.
Got it.
I think,
beautiful. Yeah, you see all the farms up there.
Oh yeah. It's farmland.
Mm-hmm.
And the regs allowed outdoor.
Mm.
So those draft regs came out 2017. I basically made the decision at that point. And in March of 18, resigned from my job, told my teacher what I was going to do, told Chip what I was going to do. And, from his standpoint, that was just not acceptable. And so there was basically an ultimatum. And it was either that I do not pursue this or walk away from the tradition. So at that point, that's where I walked away. And by June of 18, I was out living in Massachusetts, packed up 2 U-Hauls, sold my house, dragged my family across the country. I mean, my wife, who I met in Sedona, so the heartbreak that I experienced, getting to Sedona, it all wound up very,
the flower blossomed.
It turned out very, very
yes,
well. Yep.
Yes.
So I met
the bud blossomed.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Renee. I'm here Monday through Friday.
Nice. Yeah. So my, I told Emily, my wife, and she was like, so I was, it was great. I was.
You were having it was good there.
It was an incredible lifestyle.
Sedona is beautiful. People don't know it's beautiful. I haven't been, but I told you when we met, Certified Health Nut. I follow him, I see it, and it's very spiritual. The crystals.
Yep.
Oh my God! Like we got to go one time.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I want to go.
It's beautiful.
I have to.
Yeah, it's gorgeous area.
Yeah. It's like, why do you want to leave that and go to the hailing Mass, right? That we experience.
Yeah, and and the lifestyle was great. I was selling timeshare, which fascinating in many ways. But I was working, a bad day, I'd have to work 8 hours a day. I would take a week off almost every month.
Yeah.
We'd take a week off and just train. We would have people come to town, and I would take the week off and train very regularly. We'd go on vacation.
It was
just
an
incredible lifestyle. Yeah. And beautiful.
Yes. Sounds like peaceful.
Oh, it was incredible.
Always zen.
Yeah. Had a beautiful house in the center of town.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, babe, you want to sell the house and just go into the unknown and just completely, start over? And she's like, yeah, let's go, do it.
Nice.
Yeah, she's awesome.
That's awesome.
So, packed up the U-Hauls, sold the house.
And you chose Pittsfield then?
No, I moved to Ashley Falls
first,
okay,
cool.
Which is in Berkshire County. It's about 40 minutes south of Pittsfield.
Got it.
My mother actually passed away May, right before I got out there. And so I went out there and really kind of just moved into what was her house and kind of, dealt with the estate and and then that was 2018 in June, and then we moved up to Pittsfield in June of 2019. I was basically just cold calling farms and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and I want to connect farms to cannabis, and here's why, and a lot of dial tones.
Explain that. When you say connect cannabis to organic farms.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So there's a huge wave of capital that's now flowing into the cannabis industry, right? And you got
Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Gold digging, gold rush.
Yeah, and a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. And most of the money is going into indoor grow facilities. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's a discussion in itself. But my thought was, well, you've got overlapping infrastructure and skill sets between, growing, especially flowers, greenhouse growing and vegetables, and then cannabis. But most of it's going to indoors. And what I thought was, well, let's take all this capital and attract all that capital, all that revenue, and then the attention right? It's a cultural phenomenon that's happening. So to bring that attention to small farms, to address a lot of these issues, to attract capital. And here's the other thing too, is if for whatever reason the industry doesn't work, instead of building a whole bunch of indoor grow facilities, which quite frankly probably will not be repurposed to anything that has to do with growing, right? You're not going to.
So I see what you're saying. You're saying basically getting organic local farms to be able to make weed plants as well, grow weed plants to help sustain their
farm. Exactly. So that was the idea.
Ding. Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
So beautiful. That's so. It's just like it's the way to do it. It makes sense.
Yeah, and and the thing too is if for whatever reason the industry doesn't work, then now you got a whole bunch of farms throughout Northeast that have new greenhouses and tractors and irrigation.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So it's a complete overlap.
Exactly.
Right, and you've just injected a whole bunch of capital and attention into small local farms.
Yeah.
Right. Going back to full circle for all these issues that
we've
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
So when you were telling, like, cold calling people and talking to people about this, what was their, like, feedback to it? Did they, like,
react
like this? Like, did they react like Mike? Or were they like, I don't know?
Yeah, a lot. There's the full spectrum. Some people just basically,
hang up the
didn't
phone.
call me, hang up the phone. Like, you out of your fucking mind. No way.
Never have the devil's lettuce in my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But a lot, and then a lot of it was just concerned about public perception and branding issues. And then just some people were just way too busy, just couldn't even wrap their head around it. And then, a handful was, like, okay, yeah, let's explore it.
Cool.
So one of the calls I made was to Bittersweet Farm in Pittsfield. And, went down the path and we signed a lease in 2019 to get it rolling. Went through the long, drawn-out, very difficult, very expensive process. And so, had to build out this facility. All the while, I mean, I really didn't have nearly enough money to do it, right? And, it was sort of this constant struggle between, trying to push forward and keep the ball moving and raise money and, and go through the process and
again of raising money constantly, the same cycle basically. You're saying
constantly.
Yeah. You're saying you'd raise money to build this wall basically, and then you have to. Now it's like we got to go build that wall.
Exactly.
It's like we got to raise the money again.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so much energy.
And then I learned a lot in sales. I think arguably sales is one of the most, if not the most important business skill set you can have. Right.
Talking to people.
Yeah, and I mean, because what I always say is you could have the Holy Grail, right? And you could be giving people water that will give them eternal life, right? But it doesn't matter if they don't know and you can't get the word out.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, and that's true of basically anything.
Yeah.
And so, in the same way, I got out to Massachusetts and there was a lot of spirit fingers and hand waving and organic farms and growing and cultivation and But as we started to build out, things became tangible. Yeah. You could show people. Like when you came to the farm, you're like, oh wow, okay, I see. This is actually.
It's so, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it's sciencey. It's sciencey. It's the best way. It's like so science in there. In the
laboratory.
It really makes me think of like Dexter's Laboratory. Like it's a cartoon from back in the day, or Breaking Bad for anybody out there that's older. It's like I was waiting for the Navarro cartel to bust through the doors when we were in the greenhouse. I swear. And I had the white jacket on too. I was like so sick. It was like one of the sickest. Me and Sal, when Sal and I got in the car, Sal was like, dude, that was so sick.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's such a great time.
And wait till you come in the summertime, when the fields are all planted. Oof,
I can't wait either. I told Renee I got a dope shot of you. Like when we were standing out on the farm, remember? And it's like a pan shot. And like I need you to stand in the same exact spot. We're gonna have it happen, and you gotta wear that black jacket again. And it's gonna pan again, like transition, and it's gonna be. Oh my God!
It's gonna be beautiful.
She saw the shot.
Yeah,
it looks so good. You look so badass with the hail.
Nice.
Yeah, that was wild.
I know. I told them they were like, "Is hailing?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Why was it hailing?" I was like, "Am I the weatherman?" Like I don't know. Precipitation.
Well, that's and that's kind of the story to tell is it's growing cannabis outdoors in Massachusetts is not an easy feat, man.
No.
There's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah,
beautiful.
A lot of weather to deal with.
And we're gonna put on this too, like some of the shots that we got from that weekend just to show them visual a little bit while we were talking about it just now. But it was a beautiful farm and security to the wahoo. Like it's funny, like you watch movies and stuff, and 'cause I was thinking like, I mean, it's a weed farm. Like, wouldn't someone just like hop the fence, or like there is no fence? Because like you see in movies, like sometimes you're just like walking through trees, and then all of a sudden it's just like a weed farm. It's like no, not this place, not EOS Farms, at all. No, to get into each door, you have to scan your thingy, like each, and leave a room. Yep, it's high tech.
Yeah, it takes security very seriously.
Yeah, it's smart. Yeah. I wish this building honestly had stuff like that. Like the other night, we had someone like almost rip off that scanner that we have on the door. It goes, dude, welcome, Michael. Yeah. Like they have the footage of him. He was just like, and if he ripped it off, I'm the only dude here. I'm the first door, right? The first room. I would have been like, hey, like if he came in here, I'd be like, hey, what's going on? I would have thought he was someone in the building.
Right.
My God.
Was like that security aspect and like, I guess everything in that business as a whole, was that like learn as you go? Like, what was that security point? Like, when did you realize that was like a big
problem? Yeah, you needed to.
Well, address. So when I first started thinking about this, I started, looked at it as we're going into the wilderness, right? And no one knows what they're doing,
right?
And it was always shocking to me how one of the first things I would look for is when people told me, how much they knew and how they knew everything about it, and it was going to be, this is how you do it.
And then you'd look it up.
Yeah, well, not only that, I would just shut down. I'd be like, no, okay, yeah, you're not the right person for this.
Okay, got it.
Now, to be fair, I made a lot of mistakes, and choice of people was a big one. But the way I looked at it was I needed a certain skill sets to do a lot of problem solving.
Right.
So I had my background. I had the law and agriculture.
Yep.
I'm not a master farmer. I'm not a master at anything really. Right. I'm sort of like a generalist. And and so one of the people that I brought on, one of my best friends that I met in Sedona, was Marine Corps. And so he had a very long, very high level career in the Marine Corps. So I brought him on, to look at it from the operations and the security standpoint, because I knew security was going to be very important. And then, the compliance side, I kind of looked at in the legal and sort of navigating through law that's very ambiguous and poorly written and, doesn't make any sense and vague that no one understands. Yeah. And trying to kind of create a physical reality out of a bunch of laws that are really hard to follow because they're, just ambiguous. Right. They could mean any, the logic of them always, there's always one to three meanings of every sentence. Right. It's just poorly written. But that's kind of the nature of legislation. And anyway, that, and I brought in an organic farmer, somebody that I had met at Green Gulch and I'd known for many, many years, had a lot of experience in farming, and then a finance person. Cool. Kind of like the Beatles, we sort of broke up. Things didn't work out. Yeah. My buddy, the security guy, is like a brother to me. Yeah. He's still with us. Nice. He's still trucking. Good. But yeah, so from the beginning, and we also went on the standpoint of we're going to overdo it, right? Because no one had ever done it. We were one of the first outdoor. And, we wanted to make sure that we got through the compliance side of things, that when we got there, the licensing, the Cannabis Control Commission is the state agency that oversees all of the licensing and inspections. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of wowed them and showed them, and they knew there would be no concern with us. So we went very high end on the security side. Yeah. Well, let's just say some people are definitely going to get robbed and have in Massachusetts, and it's not going to be us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What was that? My curious thing is because it's you, like you said, like you didn't have a background in the marijuana growing necessarily, right? And that kind of stuff. But like, so what was the hardest part of getting it to where it is right now, basically?
The hardest part.
Yeah. What would you say? Like, what would it be the understanding, like like growing the product, the actual product, and making it awesome, or or is it the other stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff, like the law stuff or whatever?
Can I choose all of the above?
Yeah, you can. Just like at different times, right?
Yeah. So, let's see. For one, our first season last year, it rained, 71 days during the summer, 54 inches. It was more rain than recorded history. We had like 3 hurricanes, Ida, and it was just brutal. Massachusetts regulations are very restrictive. Can't use any. So in organic agriculture, you can use a lot of what's called biocontrols and organic pesticides. Pesticide is a bad name, but pesticide just meaning something that kills pests, right? And a lot of times the pesticides are very benign, and that's why they can be used on organic agriculture. For example, Bacillus thuringiensis, called BT. It's a naturally occurring bacteria. It occurs in soil. And it's highly toxic to soft body worms, all the boring worms like corn borers and hemp worms and tobacco worms. And we had every single one of those on our farm this year. And as an organic farmer, you can spray BT on organic vegetables until the day of harvest. But in Massachusetts, because of the tension between state and federal law,
for marijuana,
because it's still illegal federally.
Yeah.
And so Massachusetts,
they just are they gonna pass it soon or no?
Well, probably not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, it made it through the House. Probably won't make it through the Senate.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's what I heard. It's the House.
Yeah. It will. It's just a matter of time.
Like within 10 years, you think?
I think within 10 years.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good time frame, right?
Yeah. The problem, of course, is, politicians are owned by big ag and big pharma.
True.
Right? And so
it's like, what do they want?
Yeah,
basically?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's a difficult tension there. There's a lot of virtue signaling in federal government, a lot of talk about climate change, but the low-hanging fruit, frankly, is to address agriculture, and they know better than to talk about that, right? That's, they're like, anyway.
Right.
And cannabis is not going to solve the agricultural problem. That's not really the point. It's one piece, and it really, to me, it's about the intersection of a cultural phenomenon.
Right.
It's bringing all of this attention, all of this branding potential, all of this storytelling.
Yeah.
Right, between the prohibition and it's a very racist history. The prohibition, to the Controlled Substance Act, and you look at some of the now declassified internal documents, and the conversations around it are pretty blatant and pretty bad.
Yeah, on CIA.gov.
They're damning. They're very damning,
yeah.
right? And so, you intersect that history and that story, and in issues of liberty and individual, and criminal justice and the prohibition with organic agriculture and local food and all these things that can really come together. It's an incredible potential opportunity.
Right.
Really talk about this very important intersection of cultural phenomena, and it's a real intersection, right? This is not a branding agency coming up with a cool, packaging.
Yeah.
Like we're sustainable. We have a little better packaging. Right?
Yeah.
No. We're talking about fundamentally changing the narrative, right?
From internally.
Exactly. So, anyway, I forgot how I got into that.
We were talking. You said D, all of the above.
What was the most difficult?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so one of the things, because of this tension between state and federal law in Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources controls all pesticide use in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Whether you're applying pesticides on your lawn, you don't
have to be a farmer.
You don't have to be a farmer.
Yeah.
If there's pesticides, it's controlled by MDAR.
Got it.
MDAR has a very close, good relationship with the U.S. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Environmental Protection Agency registers all pesticides in the United States. And so because of this tension, and because the U.S. EPA, a federal organization, has never given guidance when it comes to cannabis and pesticide use.
Got it.
MDAR said, okay, there is no guidance, and therefore you can't use anything. If it has an EPA registration number, you cannot use it on marijuana. Now, it's very problematic, right? Because, for example, back to BT, which would have saved 70% of our loss this year. Would have been saved if we could have used BT and spinosad and these very commonly used organic biocontrols.
Right.
It's a bacteria that is completely benign to mammals. And so
got it.
So the U.S. EPA
affect any type.
And the reason why it has a registration number is because the EPA has done extensive research and discovered, wow, this stuff is completely benign. So make sure that if you're buying BT, it has the EPA registration number, so you know it's good and you know it's safe.
Right.
Well, MDAR said, well, if it has an EPA registration number, the label is the law. In other words, if the U.S. EPA hasn't given any guidance and they haven't said you can use it on this, then the answer is you cannot use it.
Got it. So
Right.
no answer is a no.
Exactly.
Even though there's no answer, it's still a no.
Even if the answer is, wow, this stuff is really good, you can spray it on your food until the day you harvest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's completely benign. You could basically eat your body weight and it might give you diarrhea. So don't eat your body weight in this bacteria. Right?
Right.
That's basically
who's going to do that?
Exactly.
Like some weirdo that enjoys the taste.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be like a hot dog eating contest with bacteria.
Exactly.
Except you'd be the greatest hot dog eater of all time because you just ate your body weight. Right?
Yeah.
It's physically impossible.
Right.
It's basically right, and definitely not the residual that you spray on a crop that they say you can spray on organic food until the day of harvest because it is completely benign.
And this isn't even food. We're talking a plant.
No.
Right.
And since then, because hemp is now legal,
right,
the EPA has allowed it on hemp use. And botanically, it's the exact same plant.
Right.
The delivery system is exactly the same.
I know. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
So what's up with marijuana?
It's the devil's lettuce.
Oh, my God. I'm sure.
It's difficult.
I know.
So your question,
that's great.
What's the most difficult?
It's probably law and that stuff.
Well, it's all of it.
Yeah.
Right? So you got public perception.
Go ahead.
You're handcuffed. It rained every day.
Yep.
You can't use basic biological
eating 70%
controls.
of the plant.
I mean, we lost probably 60% of our crop last year, right? Because it just got crushed. It got rained on every day. We made a lot of mistakes. It's a first year startup.
Yeah.
Every mistake you could possibly, from personnel to hiring to not hiring the right place to overspending on construction. We're going through COVID, right? So everything is 50% more expensive and 90% longer.
Oh my God, it was crazy.
So basically, you're being told to swim with cement bricks tied to your feet.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's how I would describe what you're going through.
Exactly.
But that's like dope that you made it through all that. You know what I mean? To see what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, we're still making it through.
I know, right, of course. No, of course, but I'm just saying that is a lot.
Yeah. But then, I mean, so to follow in your analogy there, Renee, we're being forced to swim with bricks attached to us, right?
Yeah.
While having to make sure that every step of the way we ask a regulator if we can take another stroke, right? And then you got 38 investors kicking you in the head the whole time, and blaming you for raining every day.
Yeah.
So you name it.
Yeah.
It was definitely challenging. Back to the meditation, I meditate a lot.
Yeah.
But, and the truth of it is, I study a lot of meditation. I meditate a lot, and stoicism, and this has been a great learning experience and testing ground.
Right.
Like, you can talk
mental
a lot of
fortitude.
Shit. Yeah. You can talk a lot of shit about being strong and having mental fortitude, but when you get really tested, that's when the rubber hits the road. And I can say that,
you're proud. You can pat yourself on the back.
Well, not yet, and I definitely, I definitely got winded. I'll tell you that. Sleep deprivation.
Is a bitch.
Got fat bags under my eyes. It's like 38 pounds I got to carry it all in place.
Yeah.
But really, what it came down to, and this is sort of how I looked at it when I was in Sedona.
Yeah.
Living this life. It's a beautiful life, beautiful family, beautiful setting. Incredible job, great lifestyle, but I wanted to show my kids the courage to step into the unknown.
Yeah.
To go into the to just drop my comfort level, to do something that I didn't know. There was no guarantee, right? I didn't have nearly enough money to accomplish it. I didn't know anybody, right? And I just. It kind of just, that was really a big part of how I framed it. And if I can't have the courage to do this and prove to my kids that you can do it, then
what can you tell them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
You know, and I looked at it like the first 35 years of my life was training.
Yes.
A lot of training, you know?
I always say that.
Yeah.
I always say that shit. Like all the hearts, the heartaches, the failures, the fuck ups, the successes even.
Yep.
It's to get you to here.
Yep.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yep. It's fire. I feel the fire too. It's dope.
Yeah, and you know, it's still, you know, we're not at the end of the story.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean, it's just challenge, and every possible thing you could possibly imagine that could have gone wrong went wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the one lesson I think. You know, I'm a big fan of Nassim Taleb and The Black Swan and Anti-Fragile. Mm-hmm. His set of books is, you know, fascinating writer and thinker. Definitely rubs a lot of people the wrong way and alienates a lot of people, and he's very, you know, very hard nosed. I'm not saying I'm not a fan, but I like the way he thinks, and one of the basic concepts to think about in terms of this anti-fragile concept is you really have to prepare for the outlier, low probability but high cost events, right? That's very important. That's one thing that I definitely understood that it could, you know, rain every day, but you don't think, oh, this year that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And everything else that could possibly go wrong went wrong. COVID, you know, supply chain delays.
Yeah.
This delay, that delay. Employee issues.
Yeah.
You know, everything you can imagine. So definitely going into a plan and believing, really believing and preparing for worst case scenario.
Right. You mentally preparing yourself, you're saying, for worst case scenario is probably the best option.
Yes.
Yeah. Because then it's like you're and not really probably, and it's hard to do. It's like not having as high, like not having crazy expectations at first. You know,
right.
on yourself as a leader of the company. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
and you got to balance that, right? Because you know you got to raise capital, right? And so you got to explain to people the dream and what can potentially happen.
Yes.
And balance that somehow, communicate all those things, and you know, the bottom line is everybody hears what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
That's one of the difficult aspects of communication in sales.
Yeah.
Right? Is how do you actually
get them to hear?
How do you get what's in your head in their head?
Yes.
It's so difficult.
Yes.
In fact, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because we're monkeys. Right? And,
it's funny.
Yeah. We're just basically banging sticks. And, you know, and people make decisions based on what the biggest monkey in the room does, not like based on logic or reasons or math or you know, any of this other bullshit that we fancy ourselves as being very rational. But you know, that's sort of that was one of the great lessons of sales, is really understanding that. But then again, you know, how do you get that across? Well, and then on top of that, you know, how do you do that and balance and really be prepared for worst case scenarios? And it's definitely I'm by no means an expert or a master in any of this. It's really just, you know, taking the beating. And then, of course, like, I think the most important is being able to take a beating and just keep going. Yeah. Never give up.
Keep getting hit.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. We usually ask two questions, like, at the end. There's only two questions I ever ask throughout the show that I, like, scripted in my head. But it's like, because I can tell already you're going to give me a gem for my first. But what is a book that has helped you in your life? Or what's a book that you're reading currently that you maybe really like right now? But I feel like you have a book that you've read that you love.
I got to choose one?
You could choose. I'll give you, if you have like two, I'll give you two. We usually do one. I'll give you two.
Okay.
Mike's being very generous. Usually he says, no, just pick one.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
We've connected.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm honored. So I'm currently a big fan of Stoic philosophy, Stoicism. So like Marcus Aurelius, Meditations.
Right.
I think that's a huge one.
Cool.
Very pithy, very, very profound. It's like an operating system to deal with adversity, to put things in perspective, and to be able to understand and frame and put context around difficulty. So Stoicism, you know, in general, but if I had to choose one, I'd say, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
And then the second is epistemology, philosophy of knowledge. Like, how do we know what we know? And specifically, Charles Sanders Peirce, Philosophical Writings of Peirce, edited by Justice Buckler. And it's a...
How do we know what we know?
Yeah, epistemology is...
Cool.
And I harp on this a lot, right? Back to, we sort of... Most human beings, right? We form belief, and it's an essential part of what it is to be a human being, right? You can't act, you can't do anything if you don't have belief. Belief is a set habit of action.
In the subconscious mind.
Or fully conscious.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, if I believe that chair is right there and sturdy, I'll sit in it. If I don't believe it, then I get into an uncomfortable state called doubt. And until I've resolved that doubt, I can't act. Handcuffed. Right? Now I could move on and do something else, but that's the basic idea.
Yeah.
And so we're inclined to form belief, but most people don't actually have a framework for how they form the beliefs that they have.
Right.
Most of them just accept
what's been
from
taught.
authority.
Correct.
And what they hear. And generally, because we are apes, we're pack hunting mammals. And my argument here is that we evolved to be able to persuade and to be persuaded. That's why sales is so important. And the reason why we've evolved that way is if it's true that we're pack hunting mammals, and you have to have a hierarchy, you have to have a group that can hunt, and the only way to hunt is if you have clear leadership. And if we have to get the entire team behind an abstract idea, like, for example, we're right here in space and time, and I know that there is a pack of deer, that way, east, 10 miles. And I have to convince everybody around me that that's the case in order for us to all work together to go hunting. Deer. Well, now, if we don't have that capability to persuade and be persuaded, then we are at a disadvantage from an evolutionary standpoint.
Correct.
So that's how we've evolved. And not only that, we have to form belief and create these stories. And we're very negative biased, but we're inclined to form belief so that we can act and hunt, right? But you can be pretty crude and not come to very firm beliefs, and they can serve the purpose of survival from an evolutionary adaptive standpoint. So if I see leaves moving and I tell the story that there's a killer animal, I've created a story that's helping me to adapt. It might not be accurate, and it might also be, always inclined towards a negative outcome. We're very negative bias in the stories we tell about our life because it helps us to survive, right? Because if every time I see leaves move and I say, oh, that's probably nothing, it's just the wind, and every time I do that, well, if I'm wrong and it's actually a lion going to kill me, then that means that becomes a disadvantage and I could die. But if every time I look at it, I say, oh, that's a lion, watch out. Well, the times I'm wrong, it doesn't affect me. But the times I'm right,
you survive.
It just saved my life.
Yeah.
So then that's how we've evolved, to create stories, to create negative stories, and to be able to persuade and be persuaded. But there's other ways. And so now fast forward, we have the scientific method. And that sort of gets us around through close observation within communities. It gets us around our stupidity and our biases and our and the way we see the world, which may not be accurate.
Right.
Okay. The framework for how to come up with answers is so crucial, which is why, we are, I think, in many ways in the predicament that we're in, culturally, politically, socially, economically, because the frameworks that we use to come up with ideas and beliefs are, first of all, haphazard and not thought through and inaccurate. They're just not very good at coming up with good, accurate, true beliefs. So the study, Charles Sanders Peirce, right? This book really lays out, in my opinion, the foundation of school of thought, American pragmatism and fallibilism, and a framework for thinking and how to come up with true belief.
Cool. Wow. Renee's writing it down, I see.
It's a long-winded answer, sorry.
No, I love it. And then my last question, which I love too, every time,
I feel like you've given. Well, actually, ask the question first.
Go
now.
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the question Mike's gonna ask. I feel like you've given a lot of answers that may answer it.
But yeah.
But I still want you to ask.
Yeah.
Because you've given a lot of wisdom.
I know. He definitely has, but I know he's got something for this answer. I know it. It's basically, what would you tell? What's some advice you'd give to a young you, or your young self? Yeah.
What age?
I'd say anywhere from 12 to 18. Because I feel like you could you could give the same wisdom to a 12-year-old that you can to an 18-year-old. You just have to tell it differently. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Wow, that's a tough question. What would I tell my 12 to 18-year-old self?
Yeah, like some advice.
Yeah.
And like Renee just said, I mean, you have given so much already to that answer, throughout this whole show. But
well, it's like one of those, things. If I didn't make the mistakes I've made, would I be the same person?
Mm-hmm.
Does that matter? I don't know. And again, there's no final outcome to any of this. It's all just kind of flowing. Mm-hmm. And I suppose to a large degree, that's sort of what I would tell myself is,
don't take it too seriously.
Well, in some ways, yeah. I mean, don't take any of the thoughts in your mind too seriously, because you really have no idea how things are going to turn out.
Right.
And so we're very negative bias. We have to tell stories in order to navigate through this world. That's how we exist. That's where we live, in these narratives and these stories. And it's helped us to adapt, and it's helped us to survive and become, the top of the food chain, evolutionary. And so it's very important, but none of the stories you tell about the future that you fear are going to come true. None of them. Not one. In fact, I challenge anybody. Think about some time where you were just mulling and just so worried about something that may or may not happen in the future. And no matter what story, no matter what images, no matter what narrative you told about the future, that's not what happened. And so you wasted your time and your energy fearing something that never came.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, the worst things that ever happened, what you notice is you make it through. And cliche as it is, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yep. So, yeah, don't take the stories, the goblins you make up in your head too damn seriously, because they're not going to come get you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, dude, I'm honored, bro. I want to shake your hand.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure,
dude.
man.
I seriously had a great combo. Probably one of my favorite combos I've had with a guest on the show.
Thanks, man.
So I appreciate you and your time, dude. And I know Renee enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I did. This is awesome.
Cool.
It really was.
All done.
Awesome.
Dang. That was amazing.
I feel like that was long-winded.
Hey guys, Tony here from Downtime TV checking in. I want to thank all our fans out there who's been liking, subscribing, sharing our content. You guys are the best. You guys are our bloodline. You make us love what we do. Thanks again.